Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If the two of you would be so kind, would you mind introducing yourselves?
Sure. My name is Andy Lund. I play guitar for the band Thought Leaders.
I'm Tyler. I play bass in that same band with Andy.
And how would you describe the music of Thought Leaders?
I think it's influenced by, steeped in like late 70s, early 80s post-punk bands, but then it's run through a filter of all of our collective experiences of playing in a variety of bands over the last 20 or 30 years. And that comes out kind of each individual has their say in the collective whole. So it's has like a post-punk kind of root to it, but there's other elements that are floating around in there as well. Hopefully to make it sound a little bit more modern, but
yeah, I think some of my friends have a misconception that we're trying to do this retro like recapture an era kind of approach, but I don't think we sound like that at all. I think it's actually way too aggressive to be something like that. It's actually pretty out there and not true. Like if you could think of like a band that was trying to be like a retro band, I don't think it's nothing like that. There's definitely something more modern and kind of unhinged about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers of instrumentation, and to me it's a larger production than the sort of bands that we're drawing influence from or inspiration from, but then we're kind of course putting our own twist on it.
So maybe let's talk about what post-punk means. Does post-punk refer to a sound? Does it refer to a kind of mentality or approach to putting music together? Or is it, do people think of an era of music when they think of post-punk, and that's why they're kind of lumping you guys in with retro bands?
I mean, I think it's the last two you mentioned. I think it is a stylistic approach, but I also think that it's an era right after the first wave of punk, especially in England, where bands were bringing in a different approach. So it wasn't just about screaming and being noisy and spitting on people. It was a little bit more based in art. So you had bands that were coming from art school, like Wire or Gang of Four, that kind of stuff, or Bauhaus even. These were guys who were in art school who heard punk and took a twist on it, of course, because the first wave of punk was basically dead by 78 anyway. Some people would disagree with that, but that's fine. But those bands started to emerge from that scene, like Joy Division, Echo and the Bunnymen, Killing Joke, like I said, Gang of Four. These bands, the sound was a little bit more stark, a little bit cleaner, and there was more separation. So it didn't sound like a more hopped up, aggressive New York Dolls. It was more like maybe a Velvet Underground kind of approach to the music, especially a band like PIL.
Like ensemble playing instead of the wall of sound.
Yeah.
We do that a lot. Like the guitar and the bass are almost never playing the same thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's both of those. I think it's a stylistic approach that's a little bit more freeing, because I think the first wave of punk was quite regimented. You were kind of put into these categories, and I think post-punk was a much wider array of ideas and acceptance. But then again, also like you said, it has to do with an era. a late 70s, early 80s era before, the big mid 80s production where, the snare sounds like it's inside of a water tank. And
and Andy can tell you all about his history. And I can't really. We met Villa, our singer, I guess a couple years ago when he joined the band, and I know he's done a bunch of projects, but they're like way outside of my sphere. Like I didn't know him, then,
yeah,
so I can't speak about Villa's past. Uh,
I can't believe it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so Villa was in a band called Dora Flood in San Francisco. He also has a solo project called The Bias. Kirk, our drummer, was in most notably in a band in Chicago called The Locals. Um, Tyler and I met when my band Lower 48, we played a show with The Mass. I think it was for our CD release show. I'm not going to say the year, but it was a really long time ago. And then both of our bands got signed to a record label in England, and we all toured Europe together, the 7 of us, plus a driver, which was complete and total chaos, good way. And then our 2 bands kind of kept doing what we were doing. Lower 48 broke up. The Mass asked me to join on bass. I dropped the guitar and picked up the bass to go over to the Mass. And then after the Mass, I mean, I've been in several other bands. I played guitar in a band called Sons of Oswald that was more kind of like converge metalcore kind of stuff. And then some stuff throughout the 2010s that was a little bit more kind of indie-ish rock kind of stuff with Kirk, actually. And then with this project, I personally wanted to do something more aggressive and gritty. And Tyler and I were just bouncing ideas off of each other. And he said, we're too old to play hardcore, which I agree with. So we kind of met somewhere in the middle of stylistic approach to the music without saying, oh, we're going to sound exactly like this. It was more like, let's just start from here and see what happens. So yeah, everybody is kind of bringing their own ideas and influences into it, of course.
I should not. I should plug. I have to plug my solo project. I have a solo metal band called Rack with a WRACK. I would be a bad self-marketer if I failed to mention that. I still do that. I'm working on stuff right now.
Yeah. And if you're interested, I run a record label called kingofsticks.com, which features Rack amongst many other bands, The Mass, Lower 48, Sons of Oswald, Winchester Revival, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's a good place to kind of at least see where, a good chunk of the background of this band is represented on that label.
Yeah.
So Tyler and Andy, the two of you had worked together, but what brought the rest of the band in? What brought all you guys together and what made you decide to work together and to do this project?
You want me to answer that? Okay, that's the affirmative. So I mean, like I said, it kind of just started off as an idea. Tyler and I just kind of bouncing some riffs off of each other. And we had a drummer lined up who decided to back out. So I talked to Kirk because we were already playing together in a different project and asked him what he thought. And
no, you know what?
No, we'd actually found Villa first.
We found Villa first. Yeah.
Yeah, we got Villa first. He came in, he played with our original drummer, and I think we had literally one session with him. And we were like, this is the guy. This is the guy to sing.
Yeah, we knew immediately that Villa was.
That was it.
That was it. Yeah.
Then
why, if you don't mind me asking, why was Villa the guy?
We sent him like a demo that we had recorded of ourselves, just like something we were working on, and he sent it back. I maybe edited,
yeah,
and with lyrics, and it suddenly sounded like a song, and it sounded killer, and like his input on it just took it to this. Andy and I don't really write songs. We just work on parts, and then Villa is kind of the crafter.
Sounds like Villa's doing most of the arrangements.
Yeah.
Fair to say?
Yeah, especially since he's singing, he has a concept in his mind of, the melody and the lyrics and where he wants the song to go. He's going to drive that structure based on the raw materials. Um, and like Tyler said, it's like we get it back and it's just like, wow,
Yeah.
okay. Now, but then we learn it with that structure, and then we all get in the room and we execute on it. That's essentially how the songs are formed.
He's really gifted at that, and like I really admired that. I've sort of spent most of my musical career like dissecting the inner clockworks of riffs, like how can I write a rhythmic uh, bit on guitar, and how does it interact with a bass and a drum beat and all that stuff. But Villa sees some bigger picture
Mhm.
in arrangements that I don't have that, you know.
How clear of an idea of what you wanted the project to sound like did you have when you went into that first EP?
Hmm. I don't think we knew what it was going to sound like. I think we had to record something to see what we had on our hands. We also wanted to play live, so it was the most expeditious way to get something out there available for people to listen to, and to start actually booking shows. I mean, we literally got Kirk in January of 2019 and played our first show in March. So things happened pretty quickly in that realm, and I think the EP was just a good way to get the ball rolling, get it in front of people so they could hear what we sound like. Um, because a lot of our friends have, at least for Tyler and I, they have certain expectations about the kind of music we play. And I knew right away there was going to be sort of a raised eyebrow to what we were doing because it didn't fall into, prior bands that we've played in stylistically. So I wanted them to be kind of forewarned as well. It's when they come to see us play, they kind of know what they're getting themselves into, that this isn't going to be, pummeling, jazzy, experimental metal kind of thing. It's going to be a much more, there's a lead singer, there's a focal point for the vocals, that's demanding the audience attention. And the three of us are creating that sound underneath him, to be able to have that platform. It's just different. It is more song based. I think that's the point Tyler was also making, is our prior bands are very riffy and mathematic in some ways, and like clockwork. And this is much more cinematic in its scope of a complete song, a finished article that we all say, yes, this is how it goes. Now we go play it.
I will
Less,
say, I think when we made that first EP, uh, we were shocked and didn't know until we finished it. Like, I think we were all surprised how happy we were with it. We didn't know
yeah.
until it was done what it was going to sound like. And when we finished it, we were like, oh my God, that sounds really good. And we were really just trying to put together a demo to book shows. And then we kind of had a bunch of debate about, wow, is this a release? Is it an EP? Is it a demo?
Right.
We never really decided for sure what it is, but it definitely, it sort of like unfolded itself through the process. Whereas going into it, we didn't know what it was going to sound like, I don't think.
Yeah, and Tyler, you engineered the drums and the bass and guitar, right? And then Villa did his vocals in his home studio for that one, and then
Yeah.
you mixed it,
Yeah.
right?
But that was also new to us. Like, we had barely been playing as a quartet for just a handful of months, and we did that At the time everything shut down, we had 5 songs done, and I think we booked studio time for, I want to say, June of last year. And I think in our heads we thought we were going to finish up a couple more tunes in the practice room together and then go to the studio and bang them out with an outside engineer, and that would have been the
Tape.
record.
Yeah, on tape and all that.
And then we all went home and everything just stopped. So we all decided, let's record those 5 songs separately. So we did that. Everyone recorded their parts separately and trading files, on the internet and all that stuff. And we really liked it. And then we got ambitious and said, let's make this a full length. And somehow managed to write 4 more songs completely remotely by trading files back and forth without ever seeing each other. And then we set up all our stuff all over again and recorded those 4 songs separately. And then it took forever to mix the whole record. And I mean, it was just such a saga because everyone's like going through the depths of like despair and like trying to reconcile being stuck at home and everything else. It really took a long time. We're talking about over a year before the record comes out. We started recording it in probably April or May.
I think I tracked Kirk's drums at the studio masked in May
of last year.
2020.
Yeah.
And then once we had those drums done, we could embark on the bass guitar, synth, vocals, and get that stuff done. And then you could start mixing those. And then we had demos of the other 4 in some kind of shape. We just never actually worked on them or played them together as a band. They were more just composite pieces.
That's not true. My memory is Burning Glass and Saturday Night Live and Enigma 41 were all written entirely in lockdown, from start to finish. They didn't even exist before lockdown. Not even a riff, not even a concept.
Oh,
we were all at home and we're like, we need more songs, so we just started throwing riffs around, and that's how those 3 came together.
Shows you what I know.
But I mean, it's crazy that you could start recording a record in May of 2019 or 2020, and then it comes out in July of 2021. Like that, I've never done anything like that in my life. All the old records I worked on were made in a week.
Yeah. It wasn't normal, but situation wasn't normal. So,
yeah. But now that we did it, we all looked at each other when it was over and said, let's never do that again.
I actually liked recording my guitar parts on my own, just for the record.
Yeah, we could do that, but like all the file trading and
that's
sucks.
That's a lot of work.
And Tyler, this was mostly put together by you, right? Because the members recorded their parts individually?
Yeah, everyone basically recorded their own parts. I mixed it at my right where I'm sitting right now. It's the spare room in my house. I don't want to say, I don't want to claim like I put together the record or produced it or anything like that. I didn't. Everyone did their stuff and everyone had hands all over it, but I did the final mixes.
And can you tell me the challenges, or if it was challenging? I mean, it sounds like it was. It sounds like it was an incredible amount of work. Finding the right sound and assembling everybody's tracks.
Yeah, the challenge for me was that this whole thing, at least for the way I feel like I'm used to working, and probably most of these guys, is in normal life, you do all
just not quite right yet. And you just kept playing with it and trying new things until you finally hit it. Like, okay, now things sound like they belong together. And that was kind of like, to me, things sort of opened up more quickly. And once you had kind of unlocked that puzzle, or you
Yeah.
put the pieces together, and you had unlocked that Pandora's box, and able to get that thing to just come together and sound like, hey, we recorded this together, even though we didn't even actually see each other for like a year. I think you hit it. It just took some time to
Yeah.
find what that combination was going to be in terms of EQ, compression, and all that kind of stuff.
I got dangerously close to the wall of like, there is a point where you can listen to something too many times and then it's lost. You cannot work on it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think right around the time we actually finished, I was pretty much there, but I got it over the finish line.
Yeah, I don't think you could have accepted one more mix change.
No.
Can you turn me up a little bit? No. It's not going to happen.
When did you realize that it was finished? When did you realize that this was the finished product that you wanted to put out into the world?
It was January.
Yeah. It was a weird, like, January 6th, all that stuff with the Capitol.
Oh, right.
The record kind of coming together. It was just a really strange, like, confluence of activity, at least for me personally. Just lots of crazy shit going on politically, and then being excited about the record being done, but being completely depressed about our current state of affairs. It was hard to be excited yet, so we had to figure out what's the game plan. What are we going to do with this thing now that it's done?
So In Wastelands is out now. Andy and Tyler, how can people hear the album? What's the best way to get it?
Get it direct from us on Bandcamp. It's thoughtleaders.bandcamp.com. We have 3 releases there. In Wastelands is one of them. It's also available on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, pretty much everything in the world. Yeah, we prefer Bandcamp. It's a better revenue stream for bands, and to keep Bandcamp going as well. They're doing a good thing.
It is digital only.
It is.
For now.
And if people want to follow Thought Leaders online and keep up to date with what you guys are doing, what's the best way to do that?
Facebook is facebook.com/thoughtleadersband. Twitter, I think, is @thoughtleaders with no vowels. And I think it's the same handle for Instagram. Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you're right. I think, like, for me, I would recommend people just follow us on Bandcamp, because if any release happens, it will happen there and you'll get notified.
Yeah.
If we ever do merch, put merch online, that's probably where that would live too. So.
And what's next for you guys?
Rehearsing, playing live, hopefully, eventually, once things simmer back down. It seems like the Delta variant is sort of throwing a wrench into what I thought would have been our return plans. So waiting to see how that plays out, especially with clubs in the Bay Area. And we have some new ideas we're tossing around. We just need to get in each other's physical space to start really working on them again, because like Tyler had mentioned, I don't think anyone relishes trying to do this all remotely.
Yeah, we've
spun that.
We did start getting together a little bit this summer, and that feels good. And I hope to do more of that. I mean, we got through the whole remote record thing, but it's not really, we are an old school band. We like being in the room. We like hearing our amps, like that. I know a lot of bands are kind of like digital bands now, and they, we're kind of old school. We like to crank it up and